What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved actors walks onto a morning show set expecting a friendly chat, only to find himself trapped in a verbal ambush that spirals out of control in just 46 seconds? A single dismissive comment from the host turned a light-hearted interview into the most explosive television moment of the year, ending with Tom Holland storming off the set in front of millions of viewers. The morning started like any other on the Today Show. Tom Holland arrived at the studio fresh off the success of his latest project, ready to talk about his new film and connect with fans watching from home. The cameras rolled, the lights blazed, and Savannah Guthrie sat across from him with that polished smile that morning television hosts perfect over years of practice. But something felt different today. There was an edge in her voice, a sharpness in her questions that cut deeper than the usual playful banter. Tom settled into his seat, then greeting the panel with his trademark warmth. Hodeko sat beside Savannah while Craig Melvin and Carson Daly rounded out the hosting team. The energy should have been welcoming, celebratory even. Instead, Tom would soon discover he had walked into something else entirely. "So, Tom," Savannah began, her tone already carrying a weight that made Tom shift slightly in his chair. "Let's talk about your new movie. I have to say, when I watched the trailer, I couldn't help but wonder if you're trying too hard to break away from Spider-Man. Is that what this is about?" Tom's smile faltered for just a moment. He recovered quickly. The professional in him knowing how to handle a tough question. "Well, I think every actor wants to show their range," he replied, keeping his voice measured. "This role gave me a chance to explore a completely different character, and I'm really proud of the work we did." Savannah responded. And that single sound carried enough skepticism to fill the studio. "But don't you think your fans want to see you as Spider-Man? Isn't that why they love you trying to be something you're not?" "Seems, I don't know, a little desperate." The other hosts exchanged glances. Hoda looked uncomfortable, her eyes darting between Savannah and Tom. This wasn't the usual playful ribbing that morning shows were known for. This was something sharper, meaner. Tom took a breath. His jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "I don't think wanting to grow as an actor is desperate," he said, and there was a firmness in his voice now. "I'm grateful for Spider-Man, but I'm also more than one role." "Are you?" though Savannah leaned forward, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I mean, let's be honest. Without that suit, would anyone really care about Tom Holland? You were cast as a teenager playing a teenager. Now you're trying to convince us you're a serious dramatic actor, and frankly it feels like you're punching above your weight." The studio fell silent. Even the crew members behind the cameras seemed to freeze. Carson Daly's eyebrows shot up and Craig Melvin actually turned to look at Savannah with an expression that clearly said, "What are you doing?" Tom's face flushed, but he kept his composure. "I think that's pretty unfair," he said quietly. "I've worked incredibly hard on this film. The director believed in me, the cast believed in me, and the early reviews have been really positive. I'm not sure why you're being so hostile." "Hostile?" Savannah laughed, but it was a cold sound. "I'm not being hostile, Tom. I'm being honest. Someone needs to tell you that maybe you should stay in your lane. Not everyone can be a chameleon like Daniel Day-Lewis or Christian Bale. Some actors are meant to play one type of role, and there's no shame in that." "Well, maybe a little shame." Hoda finally spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "Savannah, I think that's a bit harsh. Tom has done some really great work outside of Marvel." "Has he?" Savannah shot back, not even looking at her co-host. Her eyes stayed locked on Tom. "Name one performance that was memorable. One role where he disappeared into the character." "I'll wait." Tom's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. His face had gone from flushed to pale and his eyes held a storm of emotions. Anger, hurt, disbelief. "You know what," he said, his voice low and controlled. "I came here today to have a conversation about my work. I didn't come here to be insulted on national television." "Oh, here we go." Savannah rolled her eyes dramatically. "The celebrity victim complex. You can't handle a little criticism. This is what happens when you're coddled your whole career. Someone asks you a tough question and you crumble. That's not a tough question." Tom fired back, his composure finally cracking. "That's just you being cruel for no reason. What did I do to you? Did I say something? Did I do something to offend you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've been attacking me from the moment I sat down." Craig Melvin tried to interject. "Hey, let's take a breath here and maybe reset this conversation." But Savannah wasn't done. You want to know what you did, she said, her voice rising. You represent everything that's wrong with Hollywood right now. Young actors who get handed everything. Who play superheroes and think that makes them talented, who then have the audacity to demand to be taken seriously. You haven't earned the right to be in a dramatic film. You haven't paid your dues. Tom stared at her, his mouth slightly open in shock. Haven't paid my dues? I've been working since I was a kid. I've done theater. I've done dramatic roles. I've worked with incredible directors. What more do you want from me? I want you to be honest, Savannah snapped. Admit that you're in over your head. Admit that this movie is probably going to fail because you don't have the depth to carry it. Admit that you're just a pretty face in a superhero suit and nothing more. Carson Daly stood up from his position at the side. Okay, Savannah, that's enough. This isn't fair to Tom, and this isn't what we do on this show. Oh, please. Savannah waved him off. We're journalists. We're supposed to ask hard questions and get real answers. If Tom can't handle that, then maybe he shouldn't be doing press tours. Tom's breathing had become visible, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His face was red again and his hands trembled slightly. When he spoke, his voice was tight with controlled fury. You're not a journalist right now. You're a bully. There's a difference between asking tough questions and what you're doing. You're being nasty and vindictive, and I genuinely don't understand why. Maybe because I'm tired of watching mediocre actors get praised for doing the bare minimum, Savannah shot back. Maybe because I'm tired of the culture of everyone gets a trophy. You want to be in a serious film, great. But don't expect me to pat you on the back and tell you you're amazing when you're not. Hod reached over and touched Savannah's arm. Savannah, this has gone too far. We need to end the segment. Savannah shook off her hand. No, I want to hear Tom defend himself. Come on, Tom. Tell us why you deserve to be in this movie. Convince us that you're not just another flash-in-the-pan child star who peaked in their 20s. Tom stood up abruptly. The microphone clipped to his shirt pulled against the wire and for a moment it looked like he might rip it off completely. His face was a mask of barely contained rage and hurt. You know what, I'm done. I don't have to sit here and take this. Of course you're leaving, Savannah said, leaning back in her chair with a smug expression. That's what people do when they can't defend themselves. They run away. No, Tom said, his voice shaking but firm. That's what people do when they realize they're wasting their time with someone who has no interest in having a real conversation. You wanted to tear me down from the start, and I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of watching me break on your show. He reached down and unclipped his microphone, his hands fumbling slightly with the clasp. Craig Melvin moved toward him, perhaps to try to calm the situation, but Tom held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. Carson spoke up again. Tom, listen. Maybe we can take a break and start over. Tom shook his head, his eyes never leaving Savannah. There's nothing to start over. She made it very clear what she thinks of me, and I have no interest in continuing this. Whatever this is. It's called accountability, Savannah said coolly. Something your generation knows nothing about. My generation, Tom let out a bitter laugh. You don't know anything about me or my generation. You sat there and made assumptions through insults and attacked my character and my work without any basis. That's not journalism. That's not accountability. That's just mean. Hod stood up now too, her face flushed with obvious discomfort. Tom, I'm so sorry. This wasn't supposed to go like this. Please, can we just take a moment? Tom looked at her and his expression softened slightly. I appreciate that, Hoda. I really do. But I can't stay here. I won't stay here and be disrespected like this. He turned to leave. Sure. But Savannah's voice stopped him. You're making a huge mistake, Tom. Walking off a show like this, that's career suicide. People will remember this. Tom turned back slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet, but cutting. You know what people will remember? They'll remember that you invited me here under the pretense of promoting my film, and then you spent the entire time trying to humiliate me. They'll remember that your colleagues tried to stop you, and you kept going. And they'll remember that when I finally had enough and stood up for myself, you called it a mistake. I'm just trying to help you, Savannah said. But her voice had lost some of its edge. Someone needs to give you a reality check. No, Tom said firmly. You're not trying to help me. If you wanted to help me, you would have asked. My generation. Tom let out a bitter laugh. You don't know anything about me or my generation. You sat there and made assumptions through insults and attacked my character and my work without any basis. That's not journalism. That's not accountability. That's just mean. Hod stood up now too, her face flushed with obvious discomfort. Tom, I'm so sorry. This wasn't supposed to go like this. Please, can we just take a moment? Tom looked at her and his expression softened slightly. I appreciate that, Hoda. I really do. But I can't stay here. I won't stay here and be disrespected like this. He turned to leave. Sure. But Savannah's voice stopped him. You're making a huge mistake, Tom. Walking off a show like this, that's career suicide. People will remember this. Tom turned back slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet, but cutting. You know what people will remember? They'll remember that you invited me here under the pretense of promoting my film, and then you spent the entire time trying to humiliate me. They'll remember that your colleagues tried to stop you, and you kept going. And they'll remember that when I finally had enough and stood up for myself, you called it a mistake. I'm just trying to help you, Savannah said. But her voice had lost some of its edge. Someone needs to give you a reality check. No, Tom said firmly. You're not trying to help me. If you wanted to help me, you would have asked real questions about my process, about working with the director, about the themes of the film. Instead, how you decided to use this platform to make yourself feel superior by tearing me down. That says a lot more about you than it does about me. The silence in the studio was deafening. The crew members stood frozen, unsure of what to do. The other hosts looked at each other with expressions ranging from shock to embarrassment. And Savannah sat there, her smug expression finally faltering as the weight of what had just happened seemed to settle over everyone. I hope you got what you wanted out of this, Tom said, his voice heavy with disappointment. But I'm done being your punching bag. Craig Melvin stepped forward. Tom, for what it's worth, I think you handled this with a lot of grace considering the circumstances. Tom nodded at him, managing a small sad smile. Thanks, Craig. I appreciate that. He walked toward the edge of the set, and a production assistant rushed forward to help him with the microphone wire still attached to his back. The paw's hands shook as she unhooked it, clearly aware that she was part of a moment that would be replayed and analyzed for days, maybe weeks to come. Carson called out one more time. Tom, I'm really sorry about this. This isn't who we are. Tom paused at the edge of the set and looked back at the panel. His eyes swept over each of them before landing once more on Savannah. Maybe it's not who you are, he said, gesturing to Carson, Craig, and Hoda, but it's definitely who she is, and you all sat there and let it happen. That stung. Hod's face crumpled slightly, and Craig looked down at his hands. Carson opened his mouth to respond, but seemed unable to find the words. Savannah, however, still couldn't let it go. You're being dramatic, Tom. This is how interviews work. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. I can handle the heat just fine, Tom said, his voice tired now. What I can't handle is someone who uses their position to bully people under the guise of journalism. There's a difference between a tough interview and what you did today. Oh, please, Savannah scoffed. You're acting like I physically attacked you. I asked you some questions you didn't like. Welcome to the real world. Tom took a step back toward the set and for a moment everyone tensed. But when he spoke, his voice was calm, almost sad. You really don't get it, do you? You don't see anything wrong with how you treated me. That's the scariest part of all of this. You genuinely believe you were in the right. I was in the right, Savannah insisted. But there was a defensive quality to her voice now. I asked legitimate questions about your career choices. You called mediocre, Tom said flatly. You said I was desperate. That I haven't earned the right to be in a dramatic film. That I'm nothing without Spider-Man. Those aren't questions, Savannah. Those are attacks, and they were personal and cruel. Hoda spoke up softly. He's right, Savannah. You crossed a line today. Savannah whirled on her co-host. Don't you start with me, too. I'm the only one here willing to be honest. Everyone else just wants to blow smoke and make celebrities feel good about themselves. And that's not my job. Your job is to interview people with respect, Craig said, his voice firm. You can be tough without being cruel. You can challenge someone without attacking their entire career and character. I didn't attack his character, Savannah protested. But her voice lacked conviction. Now, yes, you did, Tom said quietly. You questioned my talent, my worth as an actor, my right to be taken seriously. You dismissed my hard work and dedication. You implied that I'm nothing more than a pretty face who got lucky. How is that not attacking my character? Savannah opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time since the interview began, she seemed at a loss for words. Tom waited, giving her a chance to say something, anything that might make sense of what had just happened. When she remained silent, he nodded slowly. That's what I thought. He turned to leave again, and this time, no one tried to stop him. The cameras continued to roll, capturing every moment of his exit. His posture was straight, his head held high despite the obvious emotional toll of the confrontation. He disappeared through the studio doors, and for several long seconds, no one on the set moved or spoke. Finally, Carson broke the silence. Well, that was a disaster. Savannah seemed to snap back to life. Oh, come on. It wasn't that bad. He's just sensitive. Savannah, Hoda said, her voice trembling slightly. That was painful to watch. I've never been so uncomfortable on the set in my entire career. You're overreacting, Savannah said. But she was looking around at the crew now, seeing the shocked and disapproving faces staring back at her. He'll be fine. These actors are tough. They deal with criticism all the time. That wasn't criticism, Craig said bluntly. That was a hit job. I don't know what you have against Tom Holland. But you took it way too far. I don't have anything against him, Savannah insisted, but her voice had risen defensively. I was just doing my job. I was asking the questions that needed to be asked. No one needed to ask those questions, Carson said, shaking his head. No one watching at home wanted to see that. They wanted to hear about his movie, maybe some behind-the-scenes stories, some laughs. Instead, they watched you systematically tear apart a nice guy who came here in good faith. Savannah stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Fine, if you all think I'm such a monster, maybe I should leave, too. Maybe you should, Craig said quietly, and the words hung in the air like a bomb. Savannah stared at him, her face a mixture of shock and anger. Excuse me. You heard me, Craig said, standing his ground. Maybe you should take a walk and think about what just happened here. Because from where I'm sitting, you just destroyed any goodwill this show has built over the years. You humiliated a guest. You made all of us look bad by association. And you don't even seem to realize it. I don't have to listen to this, Savannah said, but her voice cracked slightly. No, you don't, Hoda said softly. But maybe you should. The studio fell silent again. The weight of what had transpired, settling over everyone like a heavy blanket. Behind the cameras, producers scrambled to figure out how to salvage the rest of the show. On set, the hosts stood in an awkward tableau. Relationships strained and professional facades cracked. But the person everyone was thinking about, the person whose absence was felt more strongly with each passing second, was Tom Holland. The young actor who had walked onto the set with a smile and left with his dignity intact, even as someone had tried their hardest to strip it away. The cameras finally stopped rolling and the red lights blinked off. But the damage was done. The conversation that had started as